And finally, we'll chat with the leader of a project that uses adaptive sports to improve the physical and mental well-being of kids with disability and special education needs. We're now delighted to be joined in the studio by Professor Cindy Sitt, project in charge and president of the International Federation of Adapted Physical Activity, and a faculty member of the Chinese University of Hong Kong's Department of Sports Science and Physical Education. Well, adaptive sports. Cindy, can you tell us a bit more about the Jockey Club Move Without Borders project?
The Jockey Club Move Without Borders project is supported by the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charity Trust, for which we are very grateful. We all know that physical activity is beneficial for everyone, and so that's why we also want to create new opportunities for people living with disabilities, including those children and adolescents with special education needs and disability, what we call SEN descent, to engage in physical activity, thereby enhancing their physical health, mental well-being, quality of life, and social inclusion. So why we use Move Without Borders, this concept, we echo the WHO World Health Organization, which recommended that every move counts. So regardless of gender, age, ability, everyone should have the equal opportunity to participate in physical activity to enjoy its benefits. However, our findings and research indicate that over 80% of children and adolescents with disabilities and educational needs did not meet the WHO guidelines for at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity daily. So what we call the MVPA 60, which is recommended by the WHO and the Education Bureau in Hong Kong. So that's why our project was developed and designed to empower people living with disability, including those children and adolescents, to engage in physical activity to enjoy the benefits. So that's why this is the idea of what we have.
And I believe the project, the Jockey Club Move Up Borders project, started in 2024, right? And since then, I think 7,000 children with disabilities and special educational needs benefited from this project. So can you just tell us a little bit more about the physical activity? How much more physical activity did they engage?
Yeah, in our project, we use different initiatives. So for example, we promote quality PE. So it means that we encourage our teachers to let students spend at least 50% of their lesson time in MVPA. So this really facilitates their physical and mental health. And we also provide different sets of adapted sports, such as curling, goalball, sitting volleyball, and then they are able to develop their interest in different kinds of physical activities. So the data collection and analysis is still on its way, but our preliminary findings indicate that children and adolescents with disabilities improve and increase their MVPA daily approximately by 33%. So this translates from 30 minutes to 40 minutes MVPA daily, which we think is quite amazing. Yeah. So we are trying to strive the goal of engaging them to reach the MVPA 60 in the long run.
How did the project in particular adapt to the needs of these students?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. In particular, we found that disabilities encompass a different array of neurodevelopmental, physical, and mental conditions. So that's why it's very important to adapt different initiatives, including adaptive sports that we provide, to meet their developmental and personal needs. So we apply the STEP principle, so STEP, so S refers to space, T refers to task, E refers to equipment, and P refers to people. So for example, when we talk about space, we may want to adjust the boundary size of activity areas. So for example, we may want to make our activity areas a little bit smaller to facilitate body contact, or the activity area a little bit bigger to facilitate body movement, such as running. So in terms of key tasks, so for example, when we talk about passing a ball to your partner, we can also introduce different throwing techniques like overhead or underarm. We can also simplify the rules rather than having a long, detailed instruction for this group of children. And for e-equipment, we also use different types of equipment to tailor, accommodate their needs. So for example, we use like, for example, sitting volleyball, we may use bigger, lighter, softer balls. Or even for those children with visual impairment, we can also use the ball with a sound or contains bells, something like that. So lastly, for people, we can also adjust the team size. So it does not mean that we have to divide them into two groups with equal number, right? So we adjust based on their ability, their interest, and also we can partner a child with a very competent peer, and etc. We also sometimes provide some sort of role rotation, so they can be like a scorekeeper or referee, so that they are able to engage in whatever position during physical activity sessions.
And different experiences as well, right? I really love the fact that, you're not just doing providing sports and physical movement exercises for children with SCN or disabilities. You're adapting, those activities to give them the support that they need and frankly they deserve, right?
Of course.
But I want to go back to the point where you mentioned WHO recommends daily exercise for children 60 minutes per day. But you mentioned, in Hong Kong at least, children with SCN and disabilities are not meeting that target. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think there's several reasons. Maybe I can see maybe three broad reasons. The first is the child factor. So when we talk about individual factors, my research found that gender, like individual difference factor, like gender and disability types do matter. This means that girls and children with physical disabilities or severe mental disabilities are less active compared to boys and children with other disability types. And so this is the first thing about this one. Other than that, compared with typically developing children, this group of children tends to be more overweight, less physically fit, and less motivated in sometimes. So we need more incentives to motivate to participate in physical activity. Other than child factor, we also have the social factor. In particular, we noticed that children with disabilities may have comorbidities. This means that, for example, approximately 30 to 50% of children with intellectual disabilities may have a co-occurring mental health condition or ADHD, for example. So this might result in anxiety, social withdrawal, and sometimes maybe exclusion by peers. So it also depends how society perceives them, whether they have positive attitude, toward this group of people. So this is the social factor. Finally, it's about the environmental factor. In particular, space is the issue, whether they are accessible to different recreation spaces, including outdoor play. And recently, we have also encountered this global issue, climate change. So in particular, for this group of children, they might be limited to participate, for example, in outdoor activity because of like the elevated pollutants levels or the reduced stress tolerance, for example. So this really may have another factor.
I mean, it's great that people are recognising this. I mean, do we need to expand this scheme further to include more children and perhaps adults with similar disabilities or mental health issues?
Yeah, of course. So it depends on the extra funding that we have.
Of course.
But now the idea is that we focus on children in special and mainstream schools. So that's why we partner with over 62 special schools and mainstream schools. But at the same time, we also work with 5 NGOs, such as the Hong Kong Federation of Handicapped Youth, Hong Kong China, or sports association for people with intellectual disabilities, something like that. So we also want to introduce adapted sports, move without concepts, move without borders concept to the public. So for sure that we can also design programs that can outreach to children, in particular with disabilities, their parents. So these are kind of adults. And if we plan other like symposium or workshop, we can also recruit adults with disability to join as volunteers. Of course, we also want to expand these kind of programs to different population, including the age, gender, and also disability types.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that you mentioned that I think it's important is the awareness, right? Because awareness of children with SEN and disabilities is very important, because we do want to create a city where everyone feels inclusive. Right, inclusivity is very, very important. So in terms of the project, do you think this project helped raise awareness, right, of SEN and disability?
Yeah, absolutely. In particular, now I think it is a very good opportunity for me here, to also let the public know about project in detail. So, for example, in June, we organized a trial summit consisting of taster adapted sport workshop, local symposium, and award ceremony. So in particular, we also appoint students to be the inclusion sports ambassador, something like that. At that time, during that trial summit, over 320 school principals, educators, children, and their parents join this kind of big event. So in particular, we also want to promote this kind of move without borders. Everyone should have the opportunity, equal opportunity and fair opportunity to participate in physical activity to enjoy benefits. So that's why we really want to promote more through different platforms, including social media and different broadcast opportunities.
With all this expertise that you're developing under this thing, I know personally my rugby club partners with Love 21, who works with
one of our NGO partners.
That's what to say. I mean, and this must help them endlessly, just with the information you can do through your study, yes?
Yeah, in particular, because I can also supplement that we developed and organized professional training in the area of adaptive physical activity, adaptive sports. So these are open. We develop online, in-person training courses, and we are very pleased to work with international organizations, including UNESCO, so that participants who really join this kind of workshop, they can get the credentials. Yeah.
And just very quickly, Professor, in terms of getting to know more about these issues, right, with children with SEN or disabilities, just for the general public's knowledge, how can members of the public learn more about these issues? Are there any initiatives where they can volunteer and also help too?
Yeah. We make use of this project. Of course, we target our beneficiaries like children, adolescents with disabilities, special education in special and mainstream schools, but we also partner with different NGOs. So in particular, we can leverage their involvement and commitment to make our project even more impactful and more meaningful. For sure that we strike this kind of direction and then to achieve and develop a kind of a more active, healthier and inclusive society in Hong Kong.
Professor, we're just about out of time, but there's just one thing. Could you tell us where the members of the public and perhaps people that would like to donate can find out more information about this project?
Yeah, sure. They can go to our website. The link is jcmwb.hk.
You did well to remember that. Thank you very much. That was Professor Cindy Sitt, Project in Charge and President of the International Federation of Adapted Physical Activity, Associate Dean Research, Faculty of Education, Department of Sports Science and Physical Education at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, talking about adaptive sports.